Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode here at Bulletproof Selling. My name is Sean Rhodes. I'm the Chief Sales Sergeant here at Bulletproof Selling and author of the book Bulletproof Selling, a guide for systemizing sales on the battlefield of business. Now, since day one, we have been here removing hope from the sales strategies of salespeople all around the world. And we know that because we get great feedback. Sean, that one episode you did on lead generation, the one episode you did on driving more meetings, that's exactly what we needed because we put it into a process. You gave us the system on the show. We got it working. So it is our honor to be able to do that because it's a little bit of what I'm able to give back as a Marine Corps war correspondent running around the battlefield, seeing how our men and women in the military were able to remove hope from their operations, and then watching how effective that can be for a sales team. Now, why is it that sales teams aren't already doing this? Why aren't they already diving into systems like it was their lifeblood, which is what kept us alive in the military? Well, it's because, unbeknownst to us, hope has been built into so much of what we do as salespeople, from developing our ICPs, reaching out to people, lead generation, driving meetings, all the way through the sales cycle. We're hoping that people will respond to our phone calls, hoping that that deal closes, not putting the plans and the systems into place to make sure that we're learning from what's going right and what's going wrong so that we can get better. So here on this show, since day one, we've been bringing on guests that help us remove hope from whatever area of the sales cycle we're focusing on that day. These have been best-selling authors, Hall of Fame speakers, people that are out there helping sales teams remove hope from their systems and their processes every single day as well. Out of every one of these shows, we develop a sales system with our guests that you can use no matter the size of your team or the size of your goals. Now, one area that is especially difficult for salespeople as it applies to hope is what happens once we're into that sales meeting, that very first meeting where we're on the phone, we're in Zoom, or we're sitting down in that prospect's office or on their job site talking about the value that we can provide. Most of the time, salespeople, because they've been trained, they've got a couple reps in, they think they can show up and just wing that session. How do I know this is true? Because when I started selling, I was winging that initial session before I realized, I'm not getting the results that I want out of this. Maybe I should take a look at my system, my process, or actually put a system or process into place, because something is better than nothing when it comes to systems. So when I wanted to find out, hey, what can we do to drive better meetings and have those meetings do better for us in our sales cycle so that we can serve more, there was a guy that came to us and said, this is someone we have to have on the show. Why? Because he's helped set more than 450,000 meetings with his company, 450,000 sales meetings. So he might know a thing or two about what it means to set up a good meeting and to make sure that meeting is as successful as it can be. So without further ado, it's my pleasure to bring onto the show Mr. Gabe Lullo. He's the CEO of a company called Alleyoop. Gabe, welcome, sir, to Bulletproof Selling.
Thank you so much, Sean, for having me. Big fan of yours and excited to be here today.
Awesome, man. Well, all about bulletproof selling, all about removing hope from sales strategies, but you've kind of dedicated your life to helping salespeople remove hope from their meetings. Talk to us about Alleyoop and your company. And 450,000 meetings sets, pretty impressive number. I imagine there's probably millions of dollars of business closed on the backside of that. So how did you get into this game? And talk to us a little bit about what your company does.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me. And it has been a lot and been an amazing road. Alleyoop's been in business for 15 years. We started off as really an inside sales consultancy and training function for sales teams. Then again, a decade and a half ago, when the SDR role really came out of the SaaS space. And, that's what we decided to double down on. And we partnered up with amazing companies like ZoomInfo, Amazon Web Services. Then, of course, a lot of big businesses now, but back then they were smaller businesses when we started with them, and helped book those appointments. And we're the front of the lines, right? Going to your background, right? We're the front of the lines. We're the ones going ahead and opening up those doors with conversations. We're heavy on the phone. We obviously are prospecting through other channels, and we're trying to get people excited to meet with somebody else. So we're not the deal. We're not the expert. We're not the guy closing the deal or doing the demo or getting the contract signed. But we are preparing those calls for our clients, and that's what we do.
Are you taking care of, developing their ideal client profile, sourcing those prospects, getting them on the phone, convincing them it's worth having a meeting, and then turning it over to that business development rep? Talk to me about kind of where you start, where you pick up that part of the sales process.
Yeah, 100%. So there's 5 pillars that we focus on when we build a customized approach and build a customized prospecting program, we call it. First, it starts with the people. So we hire best in class, best superstar SDRs, people who have been doing this for a long time, people who love the opportunity of having conversations. They don't have to be extrovert. They don't have to be introverted, just really, focused and prepared and know what to say, right? Prepared to your point. When a conversation is happening and an objection comes their way. So we hire great people and they're all on our staff as full-time employees. And then exactly to your point, we build a database. We have great data partners. We do an ideal customer profile. We look at the total addressable market. We build lists based on insight, and then we provide that contact base to our reps, and then they're going ahead and having the messaging built out as well by us. So we do the scripts, the objection handling guides, the playbook, the notes, all the emails are all written by us, white labeled to the client. And then, of course, we're managing that entire function and backing it up with some great technology to allow us to do it at scale and keep that relevancy and personalization in place, but at scale. So we put those 5 pillars together when we build a program for our client.
And this is one of those things that I know every salesperson in the world wishes they just had an appointment setter, because most of the
Right.
work we do is in driving those appointments. So your folks, and as a salesperson, let's say, or as a business owner, I'm paying for your service. Your salespeople are setting these calls for me, setting these meetings, and I'm getting in there. And with all the work you're doing and all the funds that I'm putting towards you, I'm sure you see a lot of these meetings just not go as far as they should, based on
Yeah.
the excitement the prospect had, based on the research that you've done, based on the work that your appointment setters have done. So I'm curious where you see hope entering the picture for your clients, the folks that are paying for your folks to set meetings. Is it hoping that, that prospect's just going to be ready to pull the trigger? Is it hoping that I'll be able to show up and because of my rapport building skills and my passion for what it is that I'm selling, that I'll be able to take it the rest of the way? Where does hope enter the picture for the folks that you're dealing with?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the clients come to us with a team of sellers already, and they realize that, they're spending 60 to 70% of their time prospecting, when in reality they're being paid to not be that. Should be being paid and hold accountable for closing business and doing deals. So we're just kind of fragmenting out that full-time seller into 2 roles. We're the ones who are doing the first leg of the relay, and then the seller comes in and does the second leg of the relay, and we're passing that baton at the appointment setting part. So what we're seeing in regards to hope right now specifically is we are fixing the void or the issue that the client is having when it comes to not enough meetings. So usually they're
Mhm.
coming to us and saying, hey, we don't have enough appointments. We don't have enough appointments. We don't have enough appointments. And then we immediately fix that problem. And then what happens is the AEs at the client are usually not closing the deals that we're sending over to them. And it's because they're attaching hope to the preparation of the meeting. They're getting on a
Mm.
call. They're not doing the due diligence. They're not reading the discovery. They're not coming prepared. And I've experienced this more than ever before recently with vendors that we're looking at and getting on calls where the AE doesn't know exactly who we are, what we're all about, why they're even at the call. And I think, there's a lot of, issues with that, of course, because they're coming to the table and just first impressions are not very ideal. And that is what's causing the AEs to, hope and pray and wish that this is a deal that they can put into their pipeline, and it's not happening. And it's not because the appointment wasn't ready to go, it's because they weren't doing the due diligence in the back end. So we try to provide support as much as we can to those clients so they can at least prepare themselves to go into that battlefield, if you will, with the demo prepared.
And to bring in another battlefield analogy, then I know your folks are targeting or they're positioning themselves more like snipers rather than machine gunners.
Yeah,
So a machine gun can put down 100 rounds a minute, if not more. Um,
right.
Yet they're not taking down a very specific target. It's spray and pray in large part. My machine gunners out there, if any of my military veterans are hearing this, they're going to get on me like, no, we actually are pretty accurate with a machine gun, but it's still putting out a
Right.
large volume of ammo, whereas that sniper could wait days for that one shot. So talk to me a little bit about how your salespeople, the ones that are setting these meetings, are really focused on that one shot. Rather than, because I've heard from plenty of people running similar services, nowhere near the quality of yours, I'm sure, but they're dumping these meetings into salespeople's laps, and the meetings, are like, this prospect's nowhere near qualified. I'm kind of wasting my
Right.
time here, and I know you have some measures in place to prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
What are those measures that your folks are doing that a lot of these appointment setting agencies aren't?
Yeah. So there's a lot of companies out there that attempt to do what we do. And I always applaud entrepreneurs and companies that want to get into business that start up. But the reality is a lot of these businesses that are throwing mud against the wall and seeing what sticks, or doing the spray and praying, what you're saying, they're really kind of fragmenting out the different channels across different people. So
Mm,
much so that they'll have 5, 6, 7 callers calling against a list for one client, and no one has any organization and no one knows what brand they're representing, and it's very mismanaged and disorganized. And then they'll have other people doing LinkedIn to the same prospects. They'll have other people doing emails to the same prospects. So what's unique about us is that we have dedicated reps. So our rep
mm,
is managing each channel under one person who is assigned to that client directly, and they have relationships with the client. I mean, they're not on their payroll, right? They're our reps, but they are completely integrated into their ecosystem, and they're running all the different channels, so they could control and understand and monitor the communication that's happening depending on what channel
mm,
makes sense. So we're not just, again, throwing mud against the wall and seeing if it sticks, and doing the spray and pray. And it is a balancing act, right? We obviously have to do volume, and there's room for high volume, of course, but you can't just sit around all day long and just do one shot to get a meeting. Then you're putting all your eggs in one basket. So we try to balance out, of course, targeting the right people at the right time with the right message. And we do that through a dedicated rep versus just call centers calling and passing over people that said yes, and they don't even know what they said yes to.
yeah, no, I understand that completely. So it sounds like
Yeah.
then the hope that you see entering the picture with these sales folks, it's the same hope that a salesperson will experience if they're the ones setting their own appointments, because this happens in a lot of industries as well. I've spent months figuring out how to get in this prospect's life. I finally get them on the phone to schedule that meeting because they can't do it today for whatever reason, or we need to do more of a planned demo, or they need to come to my site, or I have to go to their site. So all this prep work comes
Right.
in, and I show up, and I'm really hoping that this is going to work out well, because a lot of time has been invested in it, either because your folks have set the meeting, which I've paid for, or I've set the meeting, which I've paid for in my time and sweat equity, hoping
Right.
that this thing shows up and does well. So let's build a system around this, because I think preparing for the meeting before the meeting, which is
Yeah.
almost like a meeting with yourself as a salesperson. So whether I'm using your service or I'm running it by myself, I think the same system is going to apply here to both of us. So when we talk about systems in the military, every single one of them removes more hope from our mission. So same thing
Right.
in sales. We use this acronym TRIM because we're trimming hope away. So if I'm building a system that is the meeting before the meeting, what is the trigger element of this? Am I triggering this right when I've got that meeting on my calendar, when it shows up as a calendar appointment, when I'm setting it on the phone? Or am I triggering this earlier in the sales cycle before I've even scheduled the meeting with this prospect? What are the things that I should be doing to kind of pull this off the shelf and get it into play so I can prepare well for my sales meetings?
Right. I think there's two ways to look at it. So there's obviously identifying if you're within the ICP, if you're looking
Mhm.
at the qualification point before you prospect and before you actually, waste time to make a call and try to get the meeting set. So you want to make sure that those parameters are in place. So look at the ICP, which is the ideal client profile, determine if it does it fit within the size of the company, does it fit within the geography of the company, does it fit within the employee size of the company and revenue size. Is this an actual fit of the ICP before you start prospecting? Because then you're not prepared at all for that. Now, once you decide that is the fit, and then you can spend time prospecting. Now it's another level of the AE. So the AE, they look at things like BANT, right? Budget, authority, need, and of course timing. With SDRs, we don't want to really dive into the BANT part because we don't want to get into budgetary questions before a meeting,
Right.
right? It's like I always say, we're like the trailer to the movie, right? So the SDR is the trailer, the AE is the movie. You don't want to say the
Mhm.
ending of the movie in the middle of the trailer. That would ruin the movie, literally. So we don't want to get into budgetary questions when we're trying to book the meeting, but we do when we're actually on the demo and getting that discovery. So I think that is the preparation that we need to have, and the things that we need to be asking when it comes to doing a good a demo. And it's about the discovery. If the demo is 70% of you talking, then you did a bad demo. if the demo is about, 30% you talking and the prospect 70% talking, that means you're asking good questions. That means you're getting good discovery, you're getting good qualifications, and then it should turn into, at least a conversation or a deal that is worth pursuing.
It sounds like one of these triggers then, well, the first one, obviously, ensure this person's within my ICP. Because if not, then they
Yep.
probably don't deserve time on my calendar. They could be better served by going somewhere else. And the second
Correct.
question is, have I covered all of my initial discovery questions that help me prepare this sales meeting to be of value to the client, to the prospect?
Right.
So that's
Yeah,
extremely
exactly.
valuable.
Yeah. And what we do
And,
with
and
our
how
clients
would you
right now
recommend
is,
then? Because I know salespeople are going to ask this question, so I'm just going to ask it for you.
sure.
How do I know that I've covered my discovery questions that help me provide value? Because I know that you're big on providing value throughout the sales cycle before the meeting. If I'm scheduling this meeting up, how do I know that I've gotten those discovery questions lined up or answered it well enough so that I have a good trailer? Because maybe this person wants to see an action movie, so that trailer needs to be an action movie. You know what I mean? Or a
Yep.
romance or a thriller, whatever that looks like. So how do I make sure my discovery questions are covered as part of this trigger element?
Yeah. Are you talking about like when in the actual preparation of setting up the meeting, like the
Yes.
SDRs role, or more? Okay, good. So what we do as a client with our clients is we actually write down around 6 to 7 questions. We don't want to go more. We definitely don't want to go less. That we want to mutually agree upon that are acceptable questions that we want to make sure we're asking in that initial discovery call to book the meeting. And then if we can
Hmm.
go ahead and do 4 to 5 of those 7 questions with a check mark next to it that we got it answered, we consider that a qualified lead that we can pass over to the client. So we do acceptable parameters. Of course, we can't, we're not perfect. We're human. We're not AI bots, right? So we can't get every question answered on a invitation call. But we do
Right.
want to make sure that we at least check a majority of those boxes, predetermined questions. And if they do qualify on 3, 5, 6 questions, depending on the actual, product itself, then at that point we say, okay, this is a meeting we want to pass the baton to.
Awesome. Because there may be 10 assumptions that
Yep.
we walk into this with as far as the very beginning of the sales cycle. If you can eliminate 8 out of those 10 assumptions because we've confirmed some things before I step into
Yep.
that sales meeting, that's a lot less assumptions. And we all know what happens when we assume. So I'm very, very on board with what you're talking about. So now we're
Right.
moving to the R in trim, which is the repeatable element of this. So if I'm a salesperson, what is the 4, 5, 6 steps I need to be doing really before I step into the meeting? So think like from your client's perspective, the things you wish they would do with the information that your SDRs give them so that they can have a better meeting.
Yep, absolutely. So if one of those questions that were asked, hey, do you have something in place right now? And if they say, yes, we do. And of course, a follow-up would be what is it? Are you, so for instance, if I'm just selling Salesforce, right, .com, and I reach out to someone, I say, hey, do you have anything in place right now as a CRM? And they say, yeah, I have HubSpot. So right there, I know that they have a competitor. So what I would do as a salesperson going into that demo is I would know everything I need to know about HubSpot and how I can show a comparison between what I'm offering here compared to what they currently have today. Now, one thing
Mhm.
about doing side-by-side comparisons is to never speak negatively about the company you currently have, because lo and behold, the person you're probably talking to is the decision maker who made the decision to buy that software originally. So if you're saying that's a stupid or bad software, you're probably saying the same thing about
Yeah.
them, and they would be offended pretty much by what you just said. So you always praise what they do, and they say, hey, obviously you see the value in having a best in class technology to manage your contacts. Let me show you a little bit about what we're doing here compared to what you have now. And then having that information and knowing your competition just as much as you know your product, I would say, is step one when going into a call like that.
Awesome. So that's step one. Be able to differentiate yourself and have some plans for how you're going to do that. What
Yep.
should step two be?
Yeah, step 2 is making sure you have the right people in the right room, right? So, you have champions or influencers, and then you have decision makers and executive, decision makers. So you want to make sure that you're talking to the right person for what you're actually asking of them. If you're talking to an influencer or a champion, don't ask or expect them to make a decision, but talk to them as if they're going to become an internal advocate for you to bring your message and to bring your solution to the decision maker, and help try to facilitate that and use them as someone who can bring in the decision maker. Of course, if you are
And knowing
talking to a
that going
decision
into the
maker,
meeting is important, isn't it? Because I'm happy to
100%.
have a meeting with a powerful advocate, but knowing that going in changes the way that I frame the conversation.
Yeah. And every company size is different and every title is different.
Yeah.
So everyone who calls, a VP could have 100 VPs or one VP at a company, right?
Yeah.
Depending on the size of the company. So qualifying that and say, Sean, if I'm contacting you, I said, I see you're the VP of sales, at this company. Are you the final decision maker on a solution like this? Or do we tag in a CRO or a CEO at this point? And then just asking that. And then say, no, buck stops with me. Okay, great. Now you know who you're talking to. Or yeah, I want to take a look at this first, and if it makes sense, I'll definitely bring in my CEO. And okay, now we know who we need to talk to next. So those are questions. And by the way, LinkedIn's great because you can figure all that out. Data providers are great because you can figure all that out prior to the call, and you should be able to bring up the names of the executives if they're not on that call and say, hey, I saw on LinkedIn your executive CEO is Bob. Is Bob someone that we need to be a part of that? And then, of course, now you're bringing in that trust, and you know what you're talking about, and you seem even more credible.
And that's a great point you just brought up. I'm going to make that step 3, which is get on LinkedIn, do some research on these folks that you're going to be meeting with or the individual you're meeting with to ascertain, are they an advocate? Are they a likely decision maker? How long have they been in their roles? What are the KPIs of that role? I mean, AI is great for asking that question. So you show up a little more
Right.
educated in case you're not completely familiar with it. And then
Yep.
I'm interested to get your insight on this one because we devoted a whole chapter in Bulletproof Selling to call objectives. We found
Mm-hmm.
it a great way to help us maintain control of mission success because in the military, we didn't just have one objective. Otherwise, we'd lose platoons of people trying to achieve it. At some point, it's like, what's an acceptable loss rate here? How do we figure out a smarter, better, faster way to do this? So I'm curious
Yep.
for your perspective for your salespeople, your clients, the ones that your SDRs are turning this over to for the meeting. Do you advocate that they define what their objectives are of that meeting ahead of time? Making the sales obviously a great one, but what are the things I should learn to advance this in my pipeline so that I can be focused on that outcome as well?
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning call, when we're trying to book an appointment, we call them invitation calls. We're just inviting them to a demo, right? And I
Mhm.
don't call them sales calls because, again, that sounds like you're going in and with an agenda, and we just want to have a conversation. We want it to be as casual as
Mhm.
possible. But in the invitation call, we do like to ahead of the game. Again, not to create smoke and mirrors because we're not trying to be the expert. We like to say, hey, listen, my role here is to coordinate calendars with an expert so you can get more information. So we try to say that line in front of the call as much as possible. So they have an expectation that this call is not designed to be a 20-minute call. It's not designed to answer a lot of questions. It's really designed, again, to not be the expert, to coordinate calendars so we can get some information in front of you to see if we have a fit. And that's how we
Yeah.
go into our initial calls as an SDR team. And that's what we look to do. Now, if you look at the full demo itself, I think the biggest thing that you have to go into is the need. You want to let them know,
Mhm.
hey, the objective of this call right now is to determine if there's a true need and to figure out what you're doing now and what, if anything, we can bring to the call, bring to you as value that could solve that pain or solve that need that you're looking for. And then once you find the need, we call it a pain point, of course. I know it may sound a little painful, but you want to put some salt in that wound, right? You want to put some salt in the wound of that pain point so it's exposed so and it drives the need even further, not in an offensive way, but in a way in which we always go back to it. Because again, when you're back into the follow-up and you're done with the demo, you can always remind them of that need and that pain point and to give them a little bit more salt to keep the deal on track.
Love it. So those are 4 great steps. I want to move into the iron trim, which is something we had to learn to do every single mission on the battlefield, which was to improve this. So if I'm running this kind of pre-meeting process, I know I'm going to drive, deeper into my pipeline with each of these meetings because I'm taking the time in a systemized way to get ready for them, to
Sure.
identify what potential pain points are here, or have I asked specifically what the pain points are so we're ready to address those in the meeting. That's going to be more conversations, more pipeline velocity. But how am I going to look at this to improve it? And is that something that you would advocate your clients do, on a quarterly basis to say of the meetings that have been coming my way from this service, how could I be getting better? In what ways could I get better? What's that simple process you would walk folks through?
Yeah, I don't know if it was my mentor or not said this to me, but it was a long time ago. He was in the military too, and he always said, "Practice, drill, rehearse. Practice, drill,
Yeah.
rehearse." practice, drill, rehearse. And what that means to us is we do the same, philosophy here, right? We listen to the calls. We use tools and technologies. There's a lot out there that allows you to review and listen to exactly what you're doing. We record all of our calls that, the states allow us to, right? And so we listen to call recordings. We listen to role plays. We do role plays consistently. We do call camps every single week as an entire company where we're listening to other people's calls, good, bad, and ugly. And we don't go there to poke fun or judge. We go there as constructive criticism so we can constantly getting better as a sales professional. From a client relationship standpoint, though, in regards to performance, we do weekly meetings and with our clients to share, again, good, bad, and ugly results. And then we also go to that call, not just to share results, because anyone could see that on a dashboard, but to say, here's what we're doing and here's what we're looking to do to tweak performance, right? To enhance, to take back, to change. A lot of what we do and what agencies are great at is do A/B testing. So we're a huge fan of A/B testing, and we see, okay, this is working, this isn't working, let's do more of that. And it takes, right, a lot of time and testing and reviewing of that to determine where should we be doubling down, where should we be pulling back, what's effective. And it's always constantly changing with the market, with competition, with new features, whatever your product offers.
Yep, love it, love it. So there's great things to do: practice, drill, rehearse on your own,
Yep.
listen to your calls, take it to the team, role play with each other if you can. Those are awesome ways to do it. And then the final bit of this, the M in trim, which is measure. Now, if I'm picking this up from the meeting perspective itself, I want to measure the success of my prep process as it applies to driving further, value into my meetings. What am I going to measure here? Is it going to be pipeline velocity? Is it going to be engagement after the meeting? What are some things that I should be measuring as a salesperson to see, is my prep process really producing results?
Well, I think win rates are obviously something we always want to measure, right? Follow-up rates are we always want to measure, keeping the conversation going. Where did it go cold? When did it go cold? Why did it go cold? We want to measure those three things when it comes to them going dark on you. And of course, targeting targeting in a different way. I always say, sales is a team sport. We do Alleyoop is our motto here, right? We're very basketball themed. Military is a team sport. So the reality is, like, you want to make sure that you're looking at it as a team environment, and you want to see what is it that we can measure on our end and what, so we can not do it again. And data. Like, we don't have opinions in sales, right? We just have data points that can tell us what is working and what isn't working. And so that's what we do, is we just follow the data, and that's how we make our decisions internally and who we want to work with.
No, that's super. So post-call engagement, and I love the idea of studying, in your call recordings, where the call went cold and why,
Yeah,
where you
exactly.
noticed their engagement begin to drop off, because it's something you did as a salesperson. If you got good engagement, that's the plate, that's its benchmark. Keep it there, increase it. But if it drops below that, you need to figure out why and how to adjust your meetings and your conversation. So,
I'll give you a
Gabe,
funny
great
story.
end-to-end
Yeah,
system, man. This is
yeah.
this is absolutely wonderful for any salesperson to figure out, how do we prepare better for our meetings, remove hope from that process so that we show up to deliver more value. That's ultimately the purpose of this. How can we produce more value in our meetings so that if we're in one of those industries where it takes more than one meeting, or we're with a advocate today, but we need to get to the decision maker, they'll be more willing to alley-oop that over to the right people. So it's a great,
Right.
great metaphor there. Gabe, for people that want to learn more about your service, or they want to follow you, because I know you're putting out great content on this very thing every day, how do we get deeper into your world?
Yeah, absolutely. Contact me directly on LinkedIn. Hyper responsive right here on LinkedIn. Love to connect with you there. If any company engagement questions, our website is alleyoop.io, and we'd love to help you out.
Amazing, sir. Well, for those of you catching this on the live stream on YouTube, make sure you're subscribing to that channel. And if you're listening to us, iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, leave a review and let other salespeople know, hey, hope does not have to be part of our sales strategy anymore. Well, Gabe, thanks for giving back to the sales community with this. I know this is something that your clients pay you to have coaching on, but now you've given it to us. That's an amazing give back to us, sir. Thank you so much for that. Now let's get out there and use it. Let's make selling bulletproof.